Hey guys, so today I wanted to show you my Degen build, which has been very requested from people who watch Willy Wonka stream because I hang out on his Mumble and stuff like that. And just a whole bunch of other close friends wanted to see the build in action and sort of see what kind of conclusion I came up to with this build. So this is a level 70 witch, and I'll explain why the level is so low in a second. You'll understand. And she uses basically Poison Arrow as the main source of damage. So Poison Arrow in the past could only reach level 23, and there is no way to scale the damage from any node in the tree, or for also people thought maybe added chaos with quality because it's a percentage would scale cloud, but it doesn't. It actually only scales itself. So there's no way to scale poison damage in the late game, and so until now, a lot of people are thinking maybe this build is not possible at all. But along came a new gem called Empower. And you see, it's actually level 1 here, so it does nothing. The quality just makes it level faster, even though faster is relative in this case, because it is one of the slowest leveling gems I've ever seen. But here we can see that thanks to my +3 bow, so my bow gives +1 to gems in this item. So we can see that Empower now gives +1 to supported gems, in this case Poison Arrow. And you can get it to level 4 thanks to the +1, but it'll cap out at +3 benefits. So the maximum poison arrow you can get in this bow, so a +3 bow, with a maxed out Empower, is level 25. So I'll show you a little bit how the DPS works, but now that we're able to actually push the damage a little more by 2 more levels, I thought maybe this would be possible. I'm also using Fire Trap for some additional damage per second. There is an initial damage here, you can see it, 5 to 700 fire damage, but what I'm really focusing on is that 550 or 45 fire damage burn, and eventually I'll link maybe that with Empower and maybe with increased burn damage and stuff like that. And for my single target I use Bear Trap, and eventually I'll link it with added fire. It's just this build isn't really fantastic when it comes to single targets. So my auras: Determination, Discipline, and Grace. As you can see, my ES is pretty low, not too bad, but pretty low considering I play Onslaught, so this is hardcore viable. But here's the reason why. I'm using a bow, so this is a quiver, and this is a pure armor chest piece, and we'll talk about this one later. But what I had to do is, since there's not a single node in this tree that can scale my chaos damage, I have points where I can spend on whatever I want, and in this case I wanted to max out my ES. So I got every single ES node in the game, and that's why I'm only level 70. You see, I've already reached all the ES nodes, so I started getting, reduced mana reservation so I can run maybe more auras. Basically, any level that I gain from here on out will be just an added bonus. It won't make or break this build. It's pretty much complete in terms of the skill tree. Of course, I still need to level up my Poison Arrow, which is level 16, and stuff like that. But I just wanted to show the build as soon as possible because there's a conclusion that I came to that I really want to share with other people who have been asking me about it because they want to make it. And the question was, is this build viable? And I'll get to that in a second. But just to show my gear a little bit, what I did was I got stuff that has highest ES possible. Now obviously these aren't the highest values. I didn't invest that much currency, but I basically went for items that give me a ton of ES, and that preferably has maybe 1, maybe 2 resists, but they don't have to be tri-res. And the reason for that is because I'm wearing so many of them, and this quiver is tri-resist as well, because there's no quiver in the game that gives ES right now. Although, just insider info here, you can expect a unique quiver that will give ES soon. That's all I'm going to say. I have some friends who have Diamond supporters, so I can tell you that right now. So the reason why I'm wearing Death Oath is, along with Fire Trap and Poison Arrow, I'm making some additional degen. As you can see, the stats says deals 450 chaos damage per second to nearby enemies. Now, nearby enemies, this curse represents pretty much the size of the aura around me. It gives a pretty good idea. And yeah, speaking of the curse, I'm using vulnerability because it gives 40% increased damage over time, so the dots you do are 40% stronger. So it will scale the Death Oath, it will scale Fire Trap as well, so vulnerability scales off of that. And if I were to gain more levels, I'd probably go for Dual Curse, because a lot of people in parties, they don't like vulnerability that much. They like ally weakness, so you can add your vulnerability afterwards and do some deeps. As you can see, this chest piece has a downside. It inflicts you the 450 damage as well, which explains why I went for CI. I tried going a hybrid at first, and it didn't work out. 450 chaos damage per second is way too much to handle. CI is definitely the way to go, but your ES is going to be relatively low. I expect through buying better gear that I can get to 5,500. Maybe someday, we never know, 6k. But one thing that's cool is I'm actually pretty tanky. As you can see here, I have quite a bit of armor, evasion, and I can pop granites as much as I want. And so now, just to look a little bit at the build, you can see that the deeps is pretty good. This is Merciless Fell Shrine. A lot of people use Fell Shrine for videos just because you can talk and not die at the same time. So it makes it easier a little bit. So I put Poison Arrow, I put a Fire Trap, I Curse, and I stand beside them if necessary. And see here, for rares, I just use Bear Trap. Because sometimes they'll stick around a little bit longer. Same thing with blues. Yeah, so that's basically the build right here. This is like the combo that works the best for me. In Fell Shrine I can get up close, but if I really needed to, I could just Poison Arrow and Fire Trap from far, like so, and not use my aura, and still get some nice DPS through that curse. It makes such a big difference. And one thing that's really cool is when you rush your friends, you can just walk by monsters and it'll fill up your Quicksilver, which is really cool. Alright, so this is how fast it kills. It's pretty effective when you're alone. But the thing I wanted to say, and the remaining reason why I'm making this video, is I think this build is not viable. It's not viable for maps, so I do not recommend you guys do this until an upcoming change, which I'll talk about in a sec. But basically this build is great here in Fell Shrine because the mobs are all together and all that stuff. But when you're doing mob densities that are a lot less dense and a lot faster, like those Whirling Blade mobs and stuff like that, you're doing a lot of kiting, and you have to wait for your ES to regen, because I didn't want to go Zealoth Oath. It's not that fantastic, and the more players there are in the game, the more the mobs have HP, so it takes you longer to kill them. And like I said, sometimes in some parties, if you don't have dual curse, people are going to get really angry. They're not going to let you use vulnerability. So for that reason, I think it's not that viable in maps just yet. Alright, so now let's take a look at the damage. So here I've mapped it out for you. It's very simple. It's color-coded. In light blue is the values that you'll find on the Path of Exile wiki. So for Fire Trap level 23, the wiki says it's 907, and these are all values that have been confirmed and tested by players. So we know those are good and true. And same goes for the Poison Arrow, which is on the right side. As you can see, the light blue values are all values I found on the wiki. But past level 20, there's no information available. So I'm not going to go too much into detail in the calculation, but what I can tell you is by looking at how Poison Arrow acts from level 18 to 20, I was able to see how much it increased every level, and then how much that value increased, which is represented by the H column. In this case, it was from level 19 to 20, it was 19. So, because I don't know what the formula is for the leveling of this particular gem, I kept it at 19 throughout the whole thing. So what that means is every value that you see in light green is an approximate, but a conservative approximation of the chaos damage per second. So I can guarantee you that these values are the minimum met by the gem. So it could be a little bit higher, but I guarantee you they'll at least do that much damage at those levels. Like I said, level 23, for example, it says 1079 chaos damage per second. It might actually be 1100. I'm not exactly sure, but I can guarantee you it does at least that much damage. So I took that value. So at level 25, it does 1400. And in the orange box, you can see I put that value. So when I get level 25 Poison Arrow, I'll have that much. And I've added it with Death Oath. Now Death Oath is always 450. Fire Trap at level 23, I know I can get level 23 easily with it. So that's my burn damage, not including the initial damage. And it totals out to 2,800. Now this is pure DPS, right? This is like how much damage per second you're doing. So you have some skills like Lightning Trap where it gives you a tooltip, a DPS, but there's no actual damage per second involved. It's all like a formula, and it's an approximation. But this one is very accurate. It's 2,800 damage per second. not including the initial hit and all that stuff. And then I scale that dot using vulnerability 40%, and that gives me my damage that I can expect once I've leveled all my gems and all that stuff, which is almost 4k. But, and this is what I've been trying to get to with this build, is even though it's not currently viable, and I've explained why and stuff like that, you can expect this build to actually work in the future. The reason for that is concentrated effect. So increased AoE works with Poison Arrow because when you link it, it makes the cloud bigger, and when you link Conk Effect with the cloud, it'll make the cloud smaller, but it won't increase the damage of the cloud. And this is something they're eventually going to fix. I can't tell you how high it is on their priority list, probably not very high, but I can guarantee you eventually they'll look into making Conk Effect work with Poison Arrow, and that's when this build is going to be viable, and so it's going to be very interesting. So Conk Effect will work with Poison Arrow. I didn't add the Fire Trap damage here because when you link Conk Effect with Fire Trap, what happens is it adds the multiplier of Conk Effect to the initial damage, not the burn. So it would only work with Poison Arrow. Nonetheless, Poison Arrow with a level 20 Conk Effect does 2,438 instead. So in the purple, it's basically the same box as the orange, but instead I put in the new value, so the Conk Effect Poison Arrow is in there. And I do the math again, and it totals out to 3.7k, and then with vulnerability it goes up to 5,314 damage per second. So that's not including the initial blast and all that stuff. So it's very cool. It's cool to know that eventually you'll be doing very crazy deeps. It's not double, but it's pretty good. So you know, it's something that I'm very much looking forward to. But I wanted to make this build to show you that currently, until this Conk Effect change, unfortunately I don't think it's very much viable. But it's still fun nonetheless, and I don't think it's worth your time and money, so I would recommend you do another build. But whenever you see this patch notes that say Conk Effect now works with Poison Arrow Cloud, that's when you should begin doing the build, and this video will be here to help you out. So I hope you enjoyed, and if you want to subscribe, maybe I'll do some more PoE content. But in the meantime, thanks for watching.